So then when I came home, I went to my gynecologist, asked her like to run some labs on me because that was before I found you. I was just like going insane. Like, why am I not getting a period? Why am I fatigued? My acne is the worst it's ever been. And again, she ran all these labs. The only one that came back abnormal, and I even messaged you on Instagram about this, that's kind of how we started talking, was that prolactin, which was really weird.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of She's in Sync. Today, I have a client of mine, Audra, and she is going to be sharing her journey. We're going to be unpacking a lot of things. So she'll tell us a little bit more about her healing journey. But essentially, if you're someone who is struggling with irregular cycles, acne, extreme fatigue, and you feel like you've gone to all the doctors, all the dermatologists, all the specialists, and you keep kind of being on this hamster wheel of your labs look normal, just go back on birth control. That's just part of being a woman. You're super active. That makes sense. And you're not really getting answers, then this is the episode for you. So we're going to be unpacking a variety of different symptoms, including irregular, erratic periods, fatigue, and acne. So Audra, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yay. I'm so excited to chat with you. So tell listeners a little bit about your story, like kind of where your hormone healing journey started and what brought you up until this point.
Yeah, so it kind of has to go back a little ways, but I would say right around age like 12, 13, kind of when you're like in that middle school phase of your life is when I really started to notice like my acne was getting bad. Never had regular periods, so I went to the dermatologist. Their solution was birth control, as a lot of people probably can relate to. And their solution was also like a lot of topicals, like clindamycin, benzoyl peroxide. This one pill that I can't remember what it's called, but it's like this huge green pill that I had to take for months on end. And everything would help a little bit at first, but then the acne would always come back. And even like being on the birth control, I didn't really get a regular period, which now I know from like working with you that it's an artificial period anyway. So yeah, I was on birth control all throughout college, all throughout high school and everything. Just got off of it in October of 2024, cold turkey, before I met Taylor. So yeah, but kind of right as I got off of it, all the acne came back, fatigue, like all the symptoms were kind of cascading. But yeah, I've also been on Accutane twice. And again, it worked in the moment, but the acne would always come back. So yeah, that's just a little bit about me.
So you got on birth control, or you were put on birth control at 12 or 13 for acne primarily.
Yep, for acne primarily. And sometimes they would switch the type of pill out because they're like, oh, this one is supposed to be better for acne. So they would like switch it sometimes, but primarily for acne and irregular periods. Yeah.
Okay. And was it the acne that kind of like that's what you sought support for? And they're like, oh, this will help with the acne and you have irregular periods. So like it'll be like, kill two birds with one stone type of thing? Or was it the irregular periods? And then they were like, oh, this will help with the acne.
Mainly the irregular periods at first. Like I went to an endocrinologist that specialized in like teenagers, and they did all this blood work, didn't really find anything, and that was kind of to address the irregular periods. So again, their solution was just stay on the birth control. And then I was going to a dermatologist separately who was also recommending the birth control, but also treating my acne like topically and with pills and things.
Yeah, with all the Accutane and the topicals and all of that.
Yeah, so it was kind of like, I guess for both reasons, but both issues were stuff I was dealing with. If that makes sense.
Yeah. So it was like a 2-for-1 of like, this will help with both of your big issues.
Yeah. And their solution, of course, was that Band-Aid birth control that, you see in so many clients.
Yeah. And like specifically what you just said about the endocrinologist who specialized in like teenagers, young women, like that like scares me because it's like, that's like so many women, like that's your story is very similar to my story, right? Of like losing my period, acne, birth control is the only solution. It stayed on that for 10 years, had no clue I wasn't having a real period, like came off, all these side effects came roaring back. And our story is way too common where it's like those deeper rooted reasons of like, okay, well, why is your period missing or why is your acne happening? And the specialist, quote unquote, I'm doing air quotes, if you can't see me, who we go to see, they aren't actually getting to the root cause of it. And so, of course, it might like manage it a little bit with the acne, but then it kept coming back. And for you and for me too, it was like not really managed. Like it helped a little bit, but you still had to, try those other band aids in addition to the birth control to fix it. And it's like when you come off, those things just come right back. And because of how birth control works, it makes things even worse. Like those symptoms come back with a vengeance, even worse before. I know when you had reached out to me, like you were just feeling really like defeated and frustrated, and you were doing all the right things. I want to tell people too, like you're a dietitian like me. And so you know your stuff. It wasn't for lack of education or for lack of trying things. Like, you're very educated on health. And this goes to show like it's just so nuanced, but you were going to the specialist and you were seeking help and doing your own research. And you just kind of kept hitting this wall.
Yeah, yeah. So I went to that specialist. They, in the initial appointment, were very dismissive of my symptoms. Then they suggested to run all of these labs. I don't even remember everything that was encompassed. And then got a bill for like $800. They didn't tell me that it was going to be covered. All the labs came back normal. They had no solution. So that was maybe when I was 14. So then kind of just went from there. And again, just feeling defeated. And like you said, I am a dietitian, but unfortunately, and you can probably agree with this, like the undergraduate curriculum is so clinical nutrition, food service nutrition based. Like I didn't get that functional nutrition education, and I really wish that they would put that into more curriculums because it's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is why this work is so specialized and what inspired me to, open my business that is specific to women transitioning off birth control and like healing their hormones naturally. It's because there's nothing out there like this. And it's such a need because the conventional healthcare system and even functional providers, I've had a lot of women who have sought support from functional nutritionists and doctors and stuff like that, but they don't specialize in post-birth control syndrome or how to transition off birth control. It's very nuanced and, it's very complicated and there isn't a lot of education around that. So it can be really frustrating and make you feel like almost broken of like, well, what am I doing wrong? Am I just going to deal with these symptoms until menopause? Like, I know that's where I was at with like my skin and my period and stuff.
Yeah. And I think like getting off the pill initially, I don't think I got a period for about 6 months. Maybe like I got one in April. And then that was kind of while I was in the thick of my master's program, like becoming the dietitian. So obviously under a lot of stress and things like that, I wasn't at home. I was at Penn State doing it. So then when I came home, I went to my gynecologist, asked her like to run some labs on me because that was before I found you. I was just like going insane. Like, why am I not getting a period? Why am I fatigued? My acne is the worst it's ever been. And again, she ran all these labs. The only one that came back abnormal, and I even messaged you on Instagram about this, that's kind of how we started talking, was that prolactin, which was really weird.
Yeah. And I know you had asked me, you were like, I think you had asked me about like PCOS or like
Hmm.
prolactinemia.
Yeah.
Okay, because that was elevated. And, I was like, oh, like that could be something, but we just don't have enough data. Like I would want to see like 10 more lab tests, not that many, but like I'd want to see a bunch more labs to really identify what it is. And that is also all too common is like providers run these surface level blood labs and either they say everything looks normal or they pick up on something like that and they automatically are like, oh, well, that's prolactinemia or that's PC or it must be PCOS just from one marker. But that doesn't show the whole story. And so that's why the labs that we run, which we'll talk about here in a second, it shows how the body's systems are interconnected. We can't just look at just blood labs. We can't just look at, and with blood labs, we also have to look at what's optimal for women's health versus what's normal, right? So even the blood labs you had run, I was like, oh, like I see it, I see things that your doctor didn't pick up on because they're looking at what's normal for men and women, a much more wide range. They're really not flagging it till it's a disease state versus I'm looking at like, let's be proactive, what's optimal for feeling the best and preventing disease states. So that combined with, looking at all these different testing to get a sense of like all these deeper root causes that are playing against each other.
Yeah, and I think I was also confused because I thought maybe I had an issue with my thyroid. Like I thought maybe I had hypothyroid, hyperthyroid. I wasn't really sure. And then all of those labs also came back normal. So that was just even more confusing for me.
Yeah, which when I looked at your thyroid, I was like, no, there's definitely some sluggish thyroid, some slow cellular thyroid function. That's a great example of, I think with thyroid and insulin, those are like the biggest ones that there's a lot, but those are some of the biggest ones that I see where women are told like, oh, these are normal. And I'm like, no, these are very out of range, like based on what I look at.
Yeah, and then with going off of the prolactin, I think she told me it was a possibly a prolactinoma, which is something to do like a I don't know, like a pituitary tumor or something.
Mhm.
So then she recommended I go to an endocrinologist, and that was going to be another 6 months. And then that's when I was kind of like, you know what, I kind of want to take a different approach. And then that's when I started seeing you in about August, I would say.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So you really, I mean, we had connected, and at that point, you just felt like exhausted with trying the conventional route. And it sounds like really let down and just felt like this isn't working. Like, I want to try a different approach.
Yeah, and I had just finished school, so I was like, okay, I finally have the time to like focus on myself and like take my health into consideration.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So let's talk about the labs. So Audra joined my VIP coaching program, which is the highest touch program. And we work together for a minimum of 5 months, and we run a bunch of functional lab testing. So this is like the gold standard for if you're experiencing multiple symptoms, you've been experiencing these things for a really long time, and you really want that one-on-one support and all the data and long-term high touch support, essentially with personalized protocols to get through all of those root causes. So the first thing that we identified before we even got labs back was we did a deep dive assessment, which I do with all my clients. And we identified that you were unintentionally under eating. So again, I want to highlight that this was unintentional, and you are a dietitian, like you know how to eat healthily. And there's a lot of, specifically, I mean, everywhere, but specifically when you're a dietitian, like there's so much language around like good or bad food. There's a lot of rules that we're learning. And so that can lead a lot of dietitians to inadvertently undereat and or eat too healthily, which surprises a lot of people. And that can be a huge factor for these hormone symptoms like the fatigue, like the acne, and like the missing period. So I'm curious your thoughts on, I remember we've talked about this quite a bit. So I would love to hear your insight into like how that felt to chat through that right from the get-go.
I think, and I had struggled with disordered eating in the past, but it was not really an issue by the time we got together. But I think, being that dietitian and being almost like the role model for the nutrition world, sometimes, like you said, you feel really pressured to almost eat like quote unquote perfect, even though looking back, like there is no perfect way to eat, but you just feel like everyone's watching you eat, everyone's like looking at what you're eating and things. So to kind of go through and be like, oh, you're only eating this much, but based on your activity level, your age, and everything that's going on, like you probably need this amount of calories. You probably need like this amount of food. So that was really eye opening for me, and I was ready to dive in and ready to eat more. Like that wasn't. I didn't really have any like thing holding me back from starting to do that. It was mainly just I didn't really know that I was under eating.
Yep. Yeah. And you were, I remember that because you were like, it was helpful to hear that feedback because that wouldn't have been something you thought you were doing all the right things, right? Like that's the whole thing is you were doing your research, you were looking into hormone health and all of that. And that's not something that's really talked about. So those are like the small little things that I tend to pick up on that it's like these are going to make a big difference. And it's helpful too, especially with the eating disorder background, like just having that feedback and having that plan of like, no, this is a healthy decision to be eating more. And I will say 99% of the women I work with, like when we first start, they're not eating enough. So you're not alone in that. And that's right from the get-go something that we typically start doing is how can we increase nourishment in a way that feels good and sustainable and realistic to you.
Yeah, for sure.
And then once we got your labs back, kind of playing off of that, so we ran a really detailed nutrient panel. So we already talked about, and blood labs. So we already talked about thyroid was sluggish, which can be, due to nutrient deficiencies, specifically like potassium, iodine, um, and calcium. So we definitely had some work on the thyroid side of things, and stress can also be a major component of that too, both physical, under eating, over exercising, and mental, emotional. So you had identified, you just became a dietitian, like you were, going into a new job at that point. The job was kind of stressful. So there was a lot of just like big life changes. Like I remember that time of my life too, like post grad school, and like I don't know, it's just like a weird. That's my fun fact. That's when I got my only tattoo, and it is a symbol. It's on my shoulder blade, and it's where you are now is where you're supposed to be. Because I just feel like that was like such a weird time of my life where it's like, what am I doing? Like I spent all this time trying to be a dietitian, and now I feel like, what's the next steps? So, anyways, but we identified like really depleted minerals in addition to the sluggish thyroid, and specifically certain certain nutrients like vitamin A was really low. And so with the Accutane, when you were on that, that worked for you, right?
Yeah, it did work for me. It was weird because I was on it at two really different stages of life. So the first time was I was 16, so I was a sophomore in high school. And then the second time I started it right after my freshman year of college, which was 2021. So my acne, I remember my dad picked me up and he was like, "Your skin is like really, really bad." And it was very like cystic acne, probably the worst my skin has ever been. So I started it after that. And then again, both times as I got off, it just kind of gradually would come back. It wasn't like immediate. It was that gradual return of the acne.
Yep. And so when Accutane works, so this is something in our assessment, or like when I'm chatting with people in discovery calls, I'll ask like, what have you tried? What's worked? What hasn't worked for you? So if Accutane has worked for you, but when you come off, your acne comes back, like in your case, that's a huge sign that low vitamin A is a key player, because Accutane is essentially high dose vitamin A. So I wasn't surprised to see your vitamin A levels were super, super low. So instead of, relying on Accutane, which has so many side effects, we're looking at nutritionally, what are some foods high in retinol that we can incorporate? So we incorporated some cod liver, some beef liver, some vitamin A rich foods, and that helps rebuild those levels in a natural way that's also nourishing your body, which is supporting your hormones overall.
Yeah, for sure. That the supplements and just starting again to eat more and the vitamin A rich foods, I feel like already helped my energy levels, but then I already noticed like an improvement in my acne.
Yeah. Yeah. And then with your hair tissue mineral analysis, we saw a very clear picture of stress, right? So we had what's called a calcium shell, which both calcium and magnesium are really, really high. And these are essentially indicating chronic long-term stress, which I know wasn't surprising. And you were burning through minerals like crazy because of the high stress load and just under eating those things. And then we also found low iodine. And then with your gut test, we found H. pylori, which is huge when it comes to acne and chronic skin conditions. So all of these different, and these are just like some of the highlights of the, if I sent all my VIP clients like a 30 to 45-minute lab review. So it would take us way too long to go through everything, but those are some of the highlights. So right away, you can see like there are so many underlying root causes of the missing irregular periods, the fatigue, and the acne that were not addressed before, which makes sense that you were, going in that runaround, just trying to search for answers and not getting sustainable results.
Yeah, I think it was also the perfect storm of I got off of birth control like in the thick of grad school. So again, going back to that stress, I was chronically stressed with exams and clinicals and things like that. So I don't think any of that was helping at all.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So, in terms of what we did with this data, once we had this information, it gave us a very clear, like, here's what we need to do to fix these things. And so we had kind of three different phases since we unearthed a lot of different imbalances. So, the first one was really focusing on replenishing and rebuilding those vitamins and minerals and just boosting up nutrition. So, we talked about ways to eat more throughout the day. We incorporated some mineral mocktails. We incorporated specific foods with the nutrients that you were low in, as well as targeted supplements. So that's what we did for the first, I think we did that for the first like 2.5 months. And then we graduated to eradicating that H. pylori. So right away in phase one, you started seeing some major wins with you noted some clearing of the skin. Acne usually takes longer, but you did note some clearing of that, some improvement with that. Um, and the biggest one that you had was your energy went way up and you got a period pretty fast after starting just phase one.
Yeah, I believe so. I think we started working together like mid-August. So by the time we were in that phase one, I had already had like within that 2 month period, my periods were already like consistently 28 days apart already, which was kind of crazy to me. And then, yeah, just eating more throughout the day. Like, I remember I would have something right when I woke up, like right before work, breakfast, and then just adding like snacks throughout the day, which I never did before, and just really trying to bulk up that nutrition, which probably helped, getting my period back.
Hmm. Yeah, we also talked about backing down from exercise too.
Yeah. Yeah, I was again, I feel like with that nutrition and the health and wellness world, I was working out probably like 6 days a week and like weightlifting and cardio and things that are like very tough on the body. So I think we talked about 3 to 4 days a week and just trying to do like lower impact things like walking and yoga and pilates and things like that. So I took it down to 3 days a week instead of that 6, which was very hard for me at first.
Yes. So the food piece was easier. The exercise piece was a little stickier.
Yeah, because I feel like exercise is a way that I really relieve stress. So it was just kind of, and I'd been doing it for so long, like ever since high school, I've been working out like 6 days a week. So that was something I really had to step back and be like, it's okay that you're not going to the gym today. Like,
Yeah.
you're going to be fine.
Yeah. So a lot of mental rewiring of your brain of like, okay, what are some other ways that I can manage stress? And what are some other things to like working on that mindset around fitness too? Because it's very much of like no one's ever talking about unless you're in this space, right, of like period recovery, no one's ever talking about like exercising too much. It's a lot of the opposite language where it's like, you never regret a workout or like, just do it mentality and stuff. But that really gets women in such a between a rock and a hard space because that's really like it goes along with the under eating. It's like that can lead to if you're chronically undernourished and or if you're just over exercising, like there's research showing that even if you're fueling adequately but you're over exercising, like based on what your body's threshold is, which is different for everyone, you can lose your period, and because your body doesn't feel safe enough to ovulate to conceive.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it was that under eating, over exercising, and then just overly stressed with school. I think those were just like the three things that we really worked on together.
Yep. Yep. In phase one, that was like huge. So a lot of foundational stuff. And this is really, really important because, we identified we had the H. pylori, we had the low iodine, we had some pretty intensive, not pretty intensive, but we had some more like sexy protocols, I would say, to go through. But we can't jump straight to those things. We have to make for sure our foundations, our stress, our nutrition, those are the foundations to health. And so we can't jump to those sexier things before we work on those foundations. Otherwise, it's not going to last and it's not going to be as effective.
Yeah.
So then we went through the H. pylori protocol. And after that, you started seeing, I think that's when I started noticing in your progress pictures, like pretty obvious skin wins and skin improvement. And that's also when you felt like your digestion was better too.
Yeah, so that was around the time, and my skin would flare a little bit, but it was mainly like you were telling me, like it was kind of like purging things. It was trying to get rid of things, which I was totally okay if my acne was a little bit worse because it meant that something was happening. And I believe that was around the time that I started seeing Emmy too, and I completely changed my entire skincare routine. Checked all my makeup products, so they're all acne safe now. Checked all my hair care products, and I kind of just like a deep dive into everything. So I feel like that was also helping too.
Yes. So you layered in the seeing an acne certified esthetician or acne specialist for topicals, and that was really helpful to get a solid skincare routine.
Yep, I got the full like face reality skincare routine. We had a call. She walked me through everything that she thought would be good for my type of skin because had sent her pictures of my acne beforehand, filled out a whole survey, told her like my history. So I think that combined with the gut killing protocol, that was when I really started to notice a difference in my.
Yep. Yeah. And with the purging, just to speak on that for a little bit, that is that can happen sometimes. And I always will say, and I think you felt the same way. I'm like, that's exciting because it means the protocol is doing what it's doing. It's like literally purging bacteria and toxins and stuff like that out of your skin to eradicate those things because those things have been stored and they would have resurfaced anyways. So that was about the time, like you said, you started seeing the esthetician. And if you haven't listened to Emmy's episode about, what to do when you're breaking out, that's back in the archives, as well as there was an episode earlier this month about just skincare for acne product or for acne in general. So make sure you listen to those if you're struggling with acne, because acne is, you got to treat it topically correctly. You got to treat it from the internal perspective correctly. But getting some of those skincare products on board at the time of that purging is helpful, because then that really can help bring the purging up faster and help it resolve quicker. So that's good.
Yeah, it's because it's an internal issue, but then it's also like so many of the products I realized I was using, I would check them through the clear stem checker, and they had pore cloggers and things, and I'm like, well, that can't be helping. And it's like you should put both pieces together, like change your skincare routine and do the gut killing protocol and everything else, because if your skincare routine isn't clean, then I don't know. I
You're
feel
just
like
adding fuel to the fire. Yeah. You're like trying to put the fire out on one side, but then you're fueling it with like another one by not
yeah,
changing something.
exactly.
Yep. Yeah. And then where we're currently at is we are finishing up our work together and we're going through an iodine protocol. So, iodine, I keep saying this, but I literally have it on my agenda. I need to do a deep dive about this because I always mention this. It's my favorite test because no one's talking about iodine. And for acne, it is huge, especially for detox, but just skin in general. It's so, so helpful. So you were really low in iodine, and iodine, like I said, really important not only for skin and for detoxification, but also for thyroid health too. And it can be helpful for PMS, for high estrogen. Like there's just so many different things, but it's a lengthier protocol. And so that's what we're finishing up right now. We just started that, and that'll take us to graduation. And, then you'll get a graduation plan of like how to continue the progress that you've made.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. Even like going back to, being a dietitian, I feel like they never talked about iodine in school. I think the only time they mentioned it was like talking about goiters and things
Yep.
like that. But yeah,
And that's sad because like I'm older than you, and that's what it was when I was in school too. So they have not caught up with the times. But yeah, iodine is so misunderstood. It's like so misunderstood, but it's so 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 crucial. And I've never tested anyone and had them sufficient in iodine. So if that goes to tell you something.
yeah, I definitely, because I think I was getting like those lip pimples, and you said that could be due to the low iodine.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Especially if you have any, for those of you listening, like chin, jaw, mustache line. Of course, there could be multiple root causes, but those are typically, they're called like, people are like, oh, that's hormonal. But it's like, there is no such thing really as hormonal acne. It's like, well, what's causing your hormones to be imbalanced to begin with? And that can be gut stuff, it can be mineral stuff. Like it's so much deeper than that, right? And iodine specifically, because it competes with things like fluoride. Fluoride, if you're using fluoride toothpaste, if you're drinking water with fluoride in it, if you're washing your skin with fluoride water or water that has fluoride in it, that can cause breakouts because it gets stored in the teeth. And then it competes, and that's where they show up on like your lip that are really painful, or again like chin, even like mustache line. So that can be a big key for you. And one thing you can do right now is get a fluoride free toothpaste. That's like one of the most simple things you can do to reduce your fluoride exposure.
Yep, which I did because my toothpaste did have fluoride in it. So again, just during the phase where I was changing out all my skincare, hair care, I probably look like a crazy person, but I was just going through everything and changing it because I wanted to change.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're very motivated, and you invest in this program and you want to change. So like this goes to show like there's just so many layers that were unearthed with all of these symptoms that were just like, wow, I've never heard this before, which is so cool, and also like crazy that, going back to like us even as dietitians, like we had no clue about any of this stuff until we learned about it.
Yeah, yeah, and just like none of it was noticed by conventional medicine either really just shocks me.
Yeah. What were some of the light bulb moments that you had, speaking of that? Like, are there any moments you remember that you're like, wow, like this is crazy, or like this is so cool, or I don't know.
I feel like really just eating more and just taking the supplements that you recommended for me, like, because going through all those labs, it was like, okay, yeah, no wonder my vitamin A is low and no wonder my skin is bad because of it. And just like going through all those things, like seeing the labs and then what each of them meant in terms of like my symptoms, I'm like, okay, yeah, no wonder I'm tired. No wonder my acne's bad. Like, just kind of putting all the labs and then the protocol, like, yeah, of course we should be doing this.
Yeah, connecting all the puzzle pieces and finally having answers and like the data.
Yeah, because I think the acne was one of the things that I was just the most frustrated with because I had seen so many people about it. And it was always like, okay, well, let's go on Accutane again. Let's put this cream on again. Like, let's do this. And I was kind of like, but none of it's worked so far. So why are we doing this again? And I think right before I saw you, like I was at the dermatologist and she said, well, your only option is to do Accutane again. And I went home and I was like, but it didn't work the first two times. So why am I going to put my body through this with all the side effects again for a third time? And that was just kind of my breaking point.
Yep. Yeah, mine was similar. My breaking point was when I went to the dermatologist for acne, and she said basically your only option is Accutane or go back on birth control. And I did not want either of those options, and I did not settle for that. So I remember crying in my car after that appointment and being like so frustrated because I had no clue what to do. And acne, whenever we talk about acne, we have to layer in like the emotional piece of it. It's like very draining, and it affects your confidence, it affects how you present yourself, it affects how you feel, it affects like you think about it all the time. It's painful, it's something that it's on your face. It's not just, oh, you have acne. It's like it's so much deeper than that.
Yeah, definitely the confidence piece. I remember like just having to go to work and not feeling the best in your skin. It's just very defeating. And you're like, why doesn't anyone else, you look around, you're like, why doesn't anyone else have acne or why isn't anyone else dealing with it to the extent that I have it? You're like, what's wrong with me almost?
Yeah, and especially when you're trying all the things, it's extra frustrating because you can't figure it out and it makes you feel really hopeless and like you're never gonna, see relief.
Yeah. I think the other thing going back to the dermatologist, and I don't know if you've had other clients that were recommended this, but they recommended spironolactone. So I don't know like what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah. So I had tried that when I was, so essentially spironolactone, it is an antidiuretic, which it's supposed to help with androgens. So again, it's a band-aid, and if it works for you, then that can show us, okay, you likely have high androgens. There is that testosterone driven hormonal component, and we have to think, okay, well, what's driving that? Like, why is your testosterone higher? So, but if it doesn't work, then that can give us, like, for me, it didn't work. And like my acne was not, even though it was like where classically everyone was like, oh, it's your hormones, but it's like literally below my nose, everything around there, like it wasn't my hormones. And so it is like a 50-50 catch all of like, okay, but when you stop and it has longer term side effects, like it's potassium sparing, so it can deplete potassium, um, which is really important for skin health, for thyroid health, like we've talked about. When you stop, it's going to come back. So you don't want to have to rely on that. And it's just like another band aid.
Yeah, and I think that was also frustrating for me. It's like, why are you recommending yet another pill? Like I've tried felt like I tried all of them. They hadn't worked. I'm like, why is that the first solution is, okay, try
Mhm.
this pill or go back on birth control, which I said no.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So we were both at the same point where we're just like, no, there has to be another way. And, for me, that was like digging into the research, pursuing functional nutrition training, like from an acne expert. And for you, it was thankfully like you had found my podcast and we had connected. And so you got that one on one support. So for anyone out there who is dealing with this, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, so I think doing your own research, like I went on a deep dive. I went through so many like websites and articles and I was on a big like podcast kick then and that's ultimately what led me to Taylor was I just looked up like ways to heal after birth control, just like I don't even know what I would put in the search engine, just like something that would try and help me. And I found your podcast and then I found your Instagram. So I guess just like doing your research and hopefully you'll find someone as great as Taylor. But yeah, just do your own research and try not to be discouraged by what the doctors are telling you because if you feel like something's wrong, then you're probably right, because I feel like your gut is always right. And I feel like just never take no for an answer. Like, you know yourself best.
I love that. Yeah, I say that all the time to women. It's like a lot of podcasts that I'm on or presentations I give, I'm like, this is my takeaway is like, if you don't feel right, but you're being told like, oh, that's normal, that's just part of being a woman, your labs look great, like there's a better way. Like your gut is telling you that something is wrong internally. And there are people out there, there are experts who specialize in that and can help you feel better.
Right. Like, I would just go through the day feeling so fatigued and like so many other things. And I'm like, I shouldn't be feeling like this. Like, that shouldn't be the norm.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Well, is there any other thoughts or things you would like to share before we wrap up today?
I guess just with going back to the acne piece, and Taylor's kind of really been emphasizing this to me, like, it does take time, even when you are working with a functional provider and an esthetician. And now I'm seeing somebody and going to get face reality treatments. Like, it is still one of the longer things. Um, Luckily for me, my period came back pretty soon after starting working with you, but I think it's just important to, like, you are doing the right things, but you still need to have some patience with yourself, because it didn't happen overnight, so it's not going to be fixed overnight.
Yes, yes. No, that's a really great reminder is with the skin stuff, like that oftentimes is the last thing to change or one of the last things to change. So it's really important to set realistic expectations for that. And I always tell people it's like 10% of my clients, they have major skin wins within the first 6 months. The majority of clients, I would say like 80%, it's between 6 and 12 months, which is where you were. And then for the latter 10%, it's like 12 plus months, sometimes a couple years. I fell into the latter 10%, where it's like my skin really didn't see progress until 9 to 12 plus months. So but you can see progress. So I know one of the things we talked about was like, okay, even if we're getting breakouts, are they healing faster? Are they smaller? Are they less inflamed? Are there less of them overall? And that did not happen overnight. And also looking at the other wins that you were experiencing of like, okay, our body is healing. We got our period back and it's been consistent. We're having more energy. Our digestion is better. A lot of times those wins come first, and that means we're in the right direction or we're going in the right direction. And the skin stuff will just take longer, because we also have to remember your skin has a 30 or 90-day cycle. So even, clogged pores that were in there before we met are resurfacing, and we're going through gut protocols, which might cause flares. Like there's so many different factors here, and it's a long-term game. So I appreciate you sharing that, because it is, you have to come in it with the right mindset. And in our case too, like we dealt with acne since we were in our teens. And so when you're in your 20s/30s and you're, getting through cause, we can't expect it to heal overnight, because we've been dealing with it for so long, and it will get better. It's a matter of time.
Yeah, I think just taking it day by day and, like you said, really focusing on the wins and like what your body is achieving is really important to just keep you in that positive mindset. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely improved, and I think taking the progress pictures with you has really helped me see how much it's improved, because day to day seeing myself, it doesn't seem like it's different. But then looking back at 4 months ago, I'm like, wow, okay, I really have made a lot of progress.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. It's sometimes because we are also our own worst critic. When you've had acne, like you focus on it. If you get a zit here or there, you're like, oh man. But when you look back and you had 10, it's like, wow, like this is much better. Like this isn't bad. But in the moment, you don't think like that.
Yeah. And even like we've talked about, like the skin barrier just looks so much healthier now.
Yes. Yes, definitely. And that's a big component of nourishing your skin from the inside and on the outside with the right topicals. Well, thank you so much for being here. And as a wrap up question, I always like to ask my guests how they are nourishing themselves lately.
Yeah, so I've been on a big reading kick, and Taylor kind of knows this because we friended each other on Goodreads. But yeah, I'm just on a big reading kick, trying to get off my phone before bed and like during my lunch break, just reading instead of being on social media, being on my phone. So I feel like just getting off my phone and reading has been really nourishing lately.
I agree. That's something I've been going through a book, like no joke. I mean, they're not like the biggest books, but like a book every week and a half or so. And I actually need to go to the library today after work and get another book because we're going on a cruise next week. And so, as you know, and I'm like, I need to get some books because I'm going to literally be reading more. Like normally I just read at night, but I'm going to have some extra time to read. So I need to get a couple more.
Yeah, that's like the one social media I feel like that is good for my mental health is Goodreads because I like to see what everyone's reading and it gives me
Yes.
inspiration. So
Yes, yeah, totally. I'll have to look at what you're reading lately. I downloaded that app and I haven't I just forget. I'm just like, oh, like I'll return this book. And I'm like, I forget what I read. So I need to get better at like putting it in there. But um well, thank you again for being on the show and for sharing your journey. This is going to be so helpful for so many women. I was even talking to someone on Instagram today who has very similar experience as you. So, if you're listening to this and you know someone who's dealing with the acne, the irregular cycles, the fatigue, please send this podcast to them. And if you have a chance, please leave a 5-star review, a comment on YouTube. It really helps grow the show and get this into more ears of women who need it. So until next time, stay nourished, friends.